For sheer coincidence, my first channel in Portuguese was created on Sonic's birthday 19 years ago. I only started using it in 2011 and only started doing reviews in 2015, so I celebrate the first review as an anniversary. But this year, I decided to do a bit more. Welcome to a unique month. Feel free to call it Sonic Month or something. Nobody had to call Monica's month Monthnica. We're going chronologically, so here's The Adventures of Sonic. A comedic series where Sinus's evil twin is Bugs Bunny and the Roadrunner at the same time. The animation in this series isn't wonderful, so this is the tone that makes the best use of it. For instance, something I've noticed in these 3 first episodes is that Sonic doesn't always seem fast. At times, he's going through the scenery quick, but the animation makes it look like he's more walking than running. In other cases, the character's animation itself is not a problem, but the speed he goes in looks a lot slower than it should. It's only when it's not fast, but it's fast. And there's a joke right after, amidst characters that change shape, wardrobe, and scenery with no problems. The animation quality isn't as relevant as being funny. Here, there's even a moment of him not fast, but saying,
I want to make sure they follow.
So even though the animation
Makes you sick, doesn't it?
I can't say it's not normal,
Makes you sick, doesn't it?
yet that it is. Meanwhile, in the Portuguese version,
Você zoa, não é?
the jokes could work better here and there. Like, in this context, the inflatable woman is more acceptable than the inflatable pumpkin. You can read this as some kind of technology so advanced we can't distinguish it from magic, only the pumpkin still acts like a pumpkin. The woman does what its owner would do, so it might just be seen as a puppet. But Tails still gets a pumpkin to the head, so it's all good. How does Sonic write his name with Robotnik's mustache? How does that woman in the beginning place a padlock over the window she's closed with herself inside? Doesn't matter, it's just a joke. The first is pretty though, but the second is a little funny. I have more problems with Miles writing SEZ at the end instead of Saz, because he's meant to be a genius. However, he wasn't as defined at that point. The second game had him on it, but I don't remember anything showing him as a genius, except maybe the rocket on the plane, which I don't remember them saying it was his. Besides, this series clearly prefers fun to making sense with the lore. After all, Robotnik here uses a machine that makes robots magically. Again, if it were a bubbling cauldron, it'd be the same. But doesn't roboticize animals. And a chicken robot being copied becomes a drill robot with but a few alterations. Robotnik, at least in this episode, is much better than in the other series. He gets angry, gathers bounty hunters to hunt Sonic, and makes robots to exterminate him. Clearly, he's cartoony and less than threatening, only it's a comedy. Him being ridiculous is a positive here, as long as it's funny. And occasionally, he is. Other times, he's a steam whistle poorly done. After this weird thumb, our episode follows with more strangeness. Why does he seem to go through his pockets? Why does Tails hide his face? Was there going to be dust and they just didn't put it in? But then they're captured and Sonic starts telling them how they met.
Don't you remember how we first met? It all started before you were born.
It becomes a flashback telling of the creation of the ones who will be the enemies together with Robotnik. Scratch the Rooster, Rounder the Drillbot, and Coconut, the crazy monkey. Get it? His coconuts, as in bananas. After Sonic humiliates Yoke-fellow Russian Robot to the point he cries, we go by the Toilinator's cousin, and then he defeats every other Mean Bean Machine opponent with various Bugs Bunny-esque or Roadrunner-y tricks. Sometimes both, as if Alien Force had combined Accelerate with Grey Matter instead of Zoc from Herculoids. The worst Gene Carrey caricature decides to make new robots, making the Chew, and Coconut sees it, deciding to go after him to prove his skills. Since he had been been demoted to janitorial duty. And after many a joke, the super special Sonic Search and Smash Squad ends with Tails captured, the two in a cage, but Coconutty ties his colleagues and Sonic convinces him to place them in the cage, escapes and traps him inside, finally making a dust storm, using Ryder's phone and tricking Robotnik that he was near the ground, leading him to fall on them, and the robots exploding so the doctor would hear a recording saying they had been discombobulated. It's the only part I can't be as optimistic. As for the humor, they clearly wanted a climax, but it's so thrown in. Grounder just used a harpoon and caught Tails using a butterfly net. It works without being anything special. Then Sonic tricks the other robot, who's Coconuts, so it makes some sense, but it's still pretty dull. He looks kinda serious, which isn't even close to taking off the mask and winking. Sonic turns into a technician to repair Grounder's phone, who noticed it needed no repairs and just uses it far from them. Grounder is an idiot, but it's still a bit forced. Then the Ovoid doctor doesn't notice where they're calling from, despite building the phone. The tower talks about seeing the red light, and you really have to suspend your disbelief with Tails next to Robotnik and him seeing the light, and not the flashlight in his hand or the impossibly rotating tailed fox himself. Maybe if they separated the two more. And then he turns off his engines instead of lowering the power. Look, someone who'd know how to build a ship like him would have noticed, or at least feel the ship getting more stable. I know that's not remarkable for kids, but after over 20 years of that pumpkin, I still find its appearance questionable and am able to say it's worth it. Or the semi-zoological woman, and think it could be just an inflatable layer with the robot's hand inside. What works, works. I can't see this ending and not find it quite inferior to the rest of the jokes, even the ones who don't work well. Of course, there's a lot of jokes. However, as I said when reviewing Robot Chicken, I'd just be talking of how much one or another would work more or less. I can easily say that even when someone does something pretty ridiculous, like got a bunch of lovely little coconuts, disguised as an old cook who decides not catching Sonic by surprise, it still works for being comical. The joke stops being Sonic's wink taking off the disguise and becomes he's so nuts, besides using a lever with his foot instead of his hand, he forgot that disguising himself had a purpose. This show is from so long ago, it was plentiful enough to tie a monkey with hot dogs. Old Brazilian expression, couldn't resist. So I imagine some might find the quality low, but going into it with a just don't take it too seriously mindset, I wouldn't say it works poorly compared to the other comedies of the time. Nothing terrible, just kinda forced at times, and with some not so good jokes, but some still work. Please don't you forget to subscribe and hit the bell.